The
Why
poor
do
maid's
grown-ups
son
pretend
asked
to
one
like
question at
everything?
dinner.
What? We
The
don't
billionaire
pretend?
put down his
That's a
fork
very
and
smart
froze.
question.
Marcus
Why do
Chin
grown-ups
stood at the
pretend to like
floor-to-ceiling
everything?
windows of his
What? We don't
penthouse,
pretend?
watching the
That's a
Chicago
very smart
skyline
question.
glitter like
Why do
scattered
grown-ups pretend
diamonds
to like
against the
everything?
velvet night.
What? We don't
At
pretend?
33,
That's a
he
very
had
smart
everything the
question.
world told him to want. A tech empire worth billions, a home that could house 50 families, and a name that made investors lean forward and competitors step back. Yet the reflection staring back at him seemed hollow, a ghost in an expensive suit. "Mr. Chin, dinner is ready," came a soft voice from behind him. Marcus turned to see Elena Rodriguez, his housekeeper of 6 months, standing in the doorway with her hands clasped in front of her. She was 28, but carried herself with the careful dignity of someone who had learned early that survival required both strength and invisibility. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her uniform was impeccable, though Marcus had noticed she wore the same worn shoes every day. "Thank you, Elena," he said, his voice automatically distant. He had learned long ago to keep walls between himself and those who worked for him. It was cleaner that way, more professional. People wanted things from him, and boundaries protected them both from disappointment. What Marcus didn't know was that Elena had her own walls, built from different materials, not privilege, but necessity. She had come to America 3 years ago with dreams folded carefully in her suitcase and her infant daughter, Sophia, strapped to her chest. The dreams had proven more fragile than she'd hoped, crumbling under the weight of an absent father, an expired visa she was desperately trying to renew, and the grinding reality that cleaning other people's homes was the only work that paid enough to keep her daughter fed. As Marcus made his way to the dining room, he heard an unfamiliar sound, a child's laughter, bright and bubbling like water over stones. He stopped in the doorway. There, at his massive mahogany dining table that could seat 20, sat a little girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes. She was coloring on what appeared to be the back of junk mail, her small legs swinging beneath the chair, not quite reaching the floor. Elena appeared beside him immediately, distress coloring her features. "Mr. Chin, I'm so sorry. The babysitter canceled last minute, and I couldn't find anyone else. I told Sophia to stay in the kitchen, but..." "It's fine," Marcus heard himself say, surprising them both. He wasn't sure why he said it. He had a rule about his employees' personal lives staying separate from his space. But something about the child's complete absorption in her drawing, the way she hummed tunelessly to herself, made him pause. The little girl looked up then, and her face split into a smile that held no calculation, no want, no awareness of who he was or what he was worth. "Hi. I'm Sophia. I'm drawing a butterfly. Do you like butterflies?" Marcus hadn't thought about butterflies in years. Maybe decades. Yes, I suppose I do." "Good." Sophia declared this as if his answer had settled something important. "Mama says butterflies are proof that beautiful things can come from hard times. I don't know what that means, but I like how they're pretty." Elena moved quickly to her daughter, speaking in rapid Spanish. Marcus had picked up enough to understand. "Sophia, I told you to be quiet. This is Mama's work. You can't bother Mr. Chin." "She's not bothering me," Marcus said, and meant it. He couldn't remember the last time someone had asked him a question that didn't involve money, contracts, or demands. Elena looked at him with cautious gratitude, the kind that came from too many disappointments. "Thank you, Mr. Chin. It won't happen again." But it did happen again. Over the following weeks, Sophia's presence became a small, persistent thread of color in the gray tapestry of Marcus's routine. Elena tried to keep her daughter invisible, but Sophia had that particular magic of young children. She simply existed too brightly to be ignored. Marcus found himself noticing things he'd stopped seeing. The way Elena always made sure Sophia ate before she touched her own food, how she'd carefully save the fruit from his breakfast plate to bring home, how her shoes had developed a crack along the side that she'd tried to glue back together. He noticed, but he didn't act. That wasn't his role. He signed her paychecks generously, provided health insurance, and didn't ask questions. That was enough, he told himself. He wasn't responsible for more than that. Then came the Thursday that changed everything. Marcus had a late meeting cancel unexpectedly, and he arrived home at 6 instead of 9. The penthouse was filled with the smell of cooking, not the catered meals that usually appeared like magic, but something homier, warmer. He heard Elena's voice from the kitchen, singing softly in Spanish, and Sophia's higher voice attempting to follow along. He should have gone to his study. He should have checked his emails, reviewed the quarterly reports waiting on his tablet, maintained the careful separation between his world and theirs. Instead, he found himself walking toward the kitchen. Elena was at the stove, stirring something in a pot, while Sophia stood on a step stool beside her, carefully dropping pasta into boiling water. They moved together in a choreographed dance of mother and daughter, and something about the scene struck Marcus with unexpected force. This was what a home looked like. This was what his penthouse had never been, for all its marble and modern art. Elena saw him first, and the color drained from her face. "Mr. Chen, I didn't hear you come in." "I'm so sorry. I was just making dinner for Sophia before I prepared your meal. I'll have everything cleaned up right away." "What are you making?" The question came out before he could think better of it. Just spaghetti," Elena said nervously. "Sophia's favorite. But I'll prepare your dinner now, It smells good," Marcus said. "I haven't had homemade spaghetti in years." The words hung in the air between them. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw something shift in her expression, a crack in her own careful walls. "Would you?" She started, then stopped, clearly thinking better of it. "Would I what? Would you like to join us?" The invitation clearly cost her something to extend. "It's nothing fancy, just pasta and sauce, but there's plenty." Marcus knew he should decline. This crossed lines, blurred boundaries that existed for good reasons. He opened his mouth to say no, to thank her politely and retreat to his study. "I'd like that," he said instead. And so Marcus Chen, billionaire tech mogul, found himself sitting at his kitchen island, a space he'd never actually used, while Elena set out 3 mismatched plates and Sophia chattered about her day at the community center daycare. "And then Tommy said his daddy drives a big truck, and I said my mama cleans a big house, and everyone wanted to know if I lived in a castle," Sophia announced proudly. "I said kind of." Elena's cheeks colored. "Sophia, that's not. It's accurate," Marcus found himself saying. "This place is a bit like a castle. Cold and empty usually." Elena's eyes met his, and something passed between them. An understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of one. They ate together, and Marcus discovered that Elena's simple spaghetti was better than any of the elaborate meals that usually appeared on his dining table. Or maybe it was the company, the way Sophia insisted on telling him a joke she'd learned. Why did the chicken go to the library? To check out a book. The way Elena gradually relaxed enough to smile, really smile, when her daughter's enthusiasm bubbled over. For one evening, Marcus's penthouse felt less like a museum and more like a home. He didn't know it yet, but Sophia's butterfly wisdom was already at work. Something was beginning to transform, though the hard times weren't over yet. Not by a long shot. Beautiful things take time to emerge from their cocoons, and both Marcus and Elena still had walls to dismantle, fears to face, and a question that would change everything to come. But that night, for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus Chen went to bed without the hollow feeling in his chest. The following weeks unfolded like a slow thaw after a long winter. Marcus found himself arranging his schedule differently, declining late meetings that he would have accepted without thought before. He told himself it was about work-life balance, a phrase his therapist had been pushing for years. But the truth was simpler and more complicated. He was coming home earlier to catch glimpses of the life happening in his kitchen. Elena maintained her professional boundaries with careful precision. She never presumed on that single shared dinner, never allowed Sophia to disturb Marcus's space without permission. But sometimes, When Marcus emerged from his study at 7 instead of 10, he would find them there, Elena preparing her daughter's dinner while Sophia did homework on the kitchen island, surrounded by pencils and papers covered in careful 3-year-old scribbles. "She's learning letters," Elena explained one evening when Marcus paused in the doorway. "The daycare teaches basic pre-K skills. She knows almost the whole alphabet now." There was pride in her voice, but underneath it, Marcus heard something else, a thread of worry, thin and taut. "That's impressive," Marcus said, moving closer. Sophia was working intensely on a worksheet, her tongue poking out the corner of her mouth in concentration. "What letter is that?" "M," Sophia announced triumphantly. "For Mama." "And Marcus, did you know your name starts with M too? We match." Something in Marcus's chest shifted at her delight in this simple connection. When had anyone last been happy just to share a letter with him? "We do match," he agreed, and was rewarded with a smile that seemed to contain more sunlight than his penthouse's massive windows had ever let in. Elena was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Sophia, show Mr. Chin what else you learned." Sophia proceeded to recite the alphabet with only minor mistakes, her small voice serious, with concentration. When she finished, she looked up at Marcus expectantly. "That was excellent," he said, and meant it. "You're a very smart girl." "Mama says education is the most important thing," Sophia reported. "She says it's how we make our dreams come true. My dream is to be a doctor for animals." "What's your dream?" The question, delivered with such innocent directness, struck Marcus silent. What was his dream? He'd spent the last decade building an empire, acquiring wealth and influence, achieving every goal he'd set for himself. But dreams? He couldn't remember the last time he'd thought in those terms. I'm not sure anymore," he admitted. Sophia considered this seriously. "That's okay. Mama says sometimes we forget our dreams when life gets hard. But they're still there, just sleeping, like butterflies in their cocoons." More butterfly wisdom. Marcus glanced at Elena, who was concentrating very hard on stirring something on the stove, her shoulders tight. "Your mama sounds very wise," Marcus said gently. That evening set a pattern. Marcus found himself staying in the kitchen more often, sometimes working on his laptop at the island while Sophia colored or practiced letters nearby. Elena would cook, her movements efficient and graceful, and occasionally she would share stories, carefully edited, Marcus suspected, about her life before. She had been a teacher in Mexico, she told him one evening. English literature of all things. She had loved her work, loved introducing students to words and worlds beyond their immediate experience. "What happened?" Marcus asked, then immediately regretted the question. "I'm sorry, you don't have to." "It's okay," Elena said quietly. Sophia had fallen asleep on the couch, tired from a day at the daycare. "Sophia's father and we met when I was teaching. He was American, working in Mexico City for a tech company. When I got pregnant, he promised we would get married, that he would bring us to America legally, properly. He bought the plane tickets himself." She paused, her hands stilling over the vegetables she was chopping. 3 months after we arrived, he left. Just left. Took his things while Sophia and I were at the clinic for her checkup. I haven't seen him since. Marcus felt anger kindle in his chest, hot and unfamiliar. "He abandoned you? His own child?" "He left money," Elena said, her voice carefully neutral. "Enough for a few months. And this apartment, well, a small room really that he'd been paying for. After that ran out, I had to find work. But my visa was temporary, tied to him, and when he left..." She made a small gesture, encompassing all the impossible complexity of immigration law. "I'm trying to fix it. There's a lawyer who says she can help, but it's expensive. Very expensive." Marcus understood expensive. He could have written a check right then that would have solved all her problems. The impulse was there, immediate and strong. But something stopped him. Elena had pride. He could see it in the straight line of her spine, in the way she met his eyes even when discussing her most vulnerable moments. A check would help, but it might also break something fragile that was building between them. It would change the dynamic, make her beholden to him in ways that would reinforce every wall she'd built to protect herself.
"This lawyer," he said instead.
"Is she any good?" Elena shrugged. "I don't know. She's the only one who would talk to me for free at first. She says she can apply for asylum, claim hardship, but there are no guarantees. And if it doesn't work..." She didn't finish the sentence, but Marcus heard the unspoken ending. Deportation, separation from the life she'd built, taking Sophia back to a place where opportunities would be fewer and futures narrower. How much does she need? Elena named a figure that was, to Marcus, laughably small, less than he spent on a single suit. To her, he realized it might as well have been the moon. "I'm saving," she said, her chin lifting slightly. "Every week, I put aside what I can. It will take time, but I'll have it." "How much time?" 2 years. Maybe 3. 2 or 3 years of living in legal limbo, of fear, of teaching her daughter to be invisible. Marcus felt that unfamiliar anger burn hotter. "Elena," he started, but she cut him off. "I don't want charity, Mr. Chen." Her voice was soft but firm. "I know you're kind. I see it, even though you try to hide it. But I need to do this myself. For Sophia, yes, but also for me. Do you understand?" He did, actually. Better than she might have guessed. He had built his entire empire on the principle of self-reliance, of refusing to owe anyone anything. "I understand," he said. Then, after a pause, "But if you needed advice? If I could recommend a better lawyer, someone who specializes in immigration law, who might work faster or more effectively, would that be acceptable?" Elena studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "That would be acceptable. Thank you." The conversation shifted after that, returning to safer topics. Sophia's progress at daycare, Marcus's latest product launch, the weather. But something had changed. Elena had let him see behind the curtain of her careful composure, and Marcus had been trusted with the knowledge of her fear. That night, after Elena had gathered the sleeping Sophia and called for an Uber she couldn't really afford, Marcus sat in his study and made phone calls. By midnight, he had the name of the best immigration lawyer in Chicago, a woman whose success rate was nearly perfect and whose fees were astronomical. He didn't call her. Not yet. That would be overstepping, inserting himself into Elena's life in ways she hadn't authorized. But he kept the name just in case. The autumn deepened into early winter. Sophia turned 3, and Marcus found himself doing something unprecedented. He left work early to be there when Elena brought out a small cake she'd baked in his kitchen. The birthday girl wore a dress that was slightly too small, last year's best outfit pressed into service again, and a paper crown that Elena had crafted from newspaper and paint. "Make a wish," Elena instructed, holding the cake while Sophia squeezed her eyes shut with theatrical concentration. Marcus watched the little girl, her face illuminated by 3 candles, and found himself wondering what she was wishing for. Toys? A trip to the zoo? Maybe just more moments like this, simple and sweet? Sophia blew out the candles with determination, and Elena clapped. "What did you wish for, mi amor?" "Can't tell," Sophia said seriously. "Then it won't come true." But it was a very good wish. They ate cake at the kitchen island, the 3 of them, and Sophia chattered about how she was a big girl now, how she could tie her own shoes, with some help, and knew almost all her letters, definitely with help. Marcus had bought a gift, something he'd agonized over more than any business decision in recent memory. It was too much, he knew, but he couldn't help himself. When he produced the wrapped package, Elena's eyes widened. "Mr. Chen, you didn't have to." "Marcus," he said. "Please. Call me Marcus." Elena's breath caught slightly. The shift from Mr. Chen to Marcus was small in words but enormous in meaning, an acknowledgement that they had crossed some invisible line from employer-employee to something else, something neither of them had quite named yet. Marcus, she repeated softly, testing the name. You didn't have to get her anything. I wanted to. Sophia tore into the wrapping paper with the enthusiasm only a 3-year-old could muster. Inside was a set of doctor's tools, a toy stethoscope, a reflex hammer, bandages, and a stuffed dog patient that made sounds when squeezed. For animals, Sophia breathed, her eyes enormous. Mama, look. I can practice being an animal doctor. She immediately began examining Marcus with a stethoscope, her small face serious, with concentration. Your heart is beating very fast, she announced. You need rest and. She looked at Elena for help. Medicine. Elena supplied, smiling. Medicine. Sophia agreed. I'll make you all better. Marcus felt something crack in his chest, some wall he'd maintained for years suddenly developing fissures. This child, with her innocent concern and her butterfly wisdom and her absolute certainty that she could make him better, she was right, he realized. He had been sick in a way. Sick with isolation, with the belief that walls kept him safe when really they just kept him alone. Later, after Sophia had fallen asleep on the couch again and Elena was gathering their things, Marcus helped her carry the sleeping child to the car. Thank you, Elena said softly, adjusting Sophia in her arms. For the gift. For everything. Elena, Marcus said, the name still feeling new in his mouth. I've been thinking about that lawyer. Her expression shifted, becoming guarded. Just hear me out, he said quickly. I know someone. Catherine Morrison. She's the best immigration attorney in the city, maybe in the state. She owes me a favor, a big one. I could ask her to take your case. I can't afford. As a favor to me, Marcus continued. Not as charity to you. The favor is mine to call in, and I'm choosing to use it this way. You would still be handling your own case, fighting your own fight. She would just be a better weapon to fight with. Elena was quiet for a long moment, looking down at her daughter's sleeping face. When she looked back up at Marcus, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Why? She asked simply. Why do you care? It was a fair question, and Marcus found himself without a simple answer. Why did he care? Because Sophia had reminded him that dreams existed? Because Elena had shown him that strength came in forms he'd never considered? Because for the first time in years, his empty penthouse had felt like a home? Because, he said finally, honestly, you've given me more in these few months than you know. Let me give you this. Elena wiped her eyes with her free hand, careful not to disturb Sophia. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. As Marcus watched them drive away that night, the city lights reflecting off the car's windows, he realized something had fundamentally shifted. He had spent years building walls, keeping people at a distance, protecting himself from the vulnerability of caring. But walls, he was learning, could also be prisons. And sometimes the bravest thing was to let someone in. He didn't know it yet, but the hardest test was still to come. Sophia's innocent question was still waiting in the wings, ready to shatter the last of his defenses and force him to confront the emptiness he'd been living with for so long. But that night, watching the taillights disappear into the Chicago night, Marcus Chen felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Catherine Morrison took Elena's case, and true to Marcus's words, she was formidable. Within a week, she had filed paperwork that Elena's previous lawyer had claimed would take months. Within 2 weeks, she had a court date scheduled. The news should have brought relief, but instead, Elena seemed to carry even more tension in her shoulders. Marcus noticed during their now regular evening conversations, the ones that had started as polite exchanges and evolved into something deeper, more essential to both of them. The hearing is in 6 weeks, Elena said one December evening. Sophia was in the living room, watching a nature documentary that Marcus had turned on for her. They could hear David Attenborough's soothing narration in the background, Something about monarch butterflies and their impossible migrations. Catherine says I have a good case. Strong documentation of hardship, character witnesses, Sophia's welfare. But good cases don't always win. They do when Catherine Morrison is arguing them, Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. He had spent hours researching immigration law, reading case files, trying to understand the system that held Elena's future in its bureaucratic grip. And if they don't? Elena asked quietly. If they order deportation? I take Sophia back to a place she doesn't remember, where opportunities are limited, where her dream of becoming a veterinarian is a fantasy instead of a possibility. Marcus wanted to promise her it would be fine, that everything would work out. But Elena had trusted him with her truth, and she deserved truth in return. Then we'll figure out the next step, he said instead. Appeals. Other options. You're not alone in this, Elena. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Marcus saw the fear she usually kept hidden. Why are you doing this? Really? You've done so much already, more than I had any right to expect. The lawyer, the gifts for Sophia, these dinners. Marcus, I clean your house. That's our relationship. But this feels like... She stopped, unable or unwilling to finish. Like what? Like something I'm afraid to name, she whispered. Because naming it makes it real, and if it's real, it can break. And I can't. Her voice cracked. I can't afford anything else breaking right now. Marcus moved closer, close enough to smell the vanilla scent of her shampoo, to see the golden flecks in her brown eyes. What if I told you I'm afraid to name it too? What if I told you that these last few months, having you and Sophia here, have been the first time this place has felt like a home? That I wake up looking forward to the day instead of just getting through it? Marcus. I know the timing is terrible, he continued. I know you're dealing with so much, and the last thing you need is this complication. But I also know that I can't keep pretending this is just an employer being generous to his employee. It stopped being that the night Sophia told me we matched because our names start with the same letter. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I can't. Not now. If I let myself feel what I'm feeling, if I let myself want what I want, and then I lose the case. If they make me leave, take Sophia away from the only home she remembers. She shook her head. I have to protect my heart. For her, if not for me. What if protecting your heart means missing out on something real? Then that's what it means, Elena said, her voice steadying even as tears slipped down her cheeks. I've made that choice before, and I'll make it again. Sophia is everything. Everything else is secondary. Marcus understood then, really understood, what Elena was telling him. She was a mother first, and her daughter's welfare would always come before her own happiness. It was admirable and heartbreaking in equal measure. I'll wait, he said simply. However long it takes. I'll be here. Elena wiped her eyes. You shouldn't promise that. 6 weeks from now, I might not be here at all. Then I'll wait wherever you are. The words hung between them, a promise that was probably foolish, but felt necessary. Elena opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Sophia appeared in the doorway. Mama, the butterflies are going home, she announced seriously. They fly all the way to Mexico. That's where you're from. Maybe we could visit them. Elena's expression crumpled for just a moment before she recovered. Maybe, mi amor. Maybe someday. Sophia, with the intuitive emotional intelligence of young children, climbed into her mother's lap and wrapped small arms around her neck. Don't be sad, Mama. Marcus said dreams are just sleeping, remember? We can wake them up. Marcus felt his heart constrict. He hadn't said that, Sophia had. But the little girl had attributed her own wisdom to him, and something about that trust, that belief that he had answers, made him more determined than ever to help them. The weeks before the hearing were tense. Elena threw herself into work with almost manic energy, keeping every surface of Marcus's penthouse spotless, as if perfect performance could somehow influence the outcome of her case. Sophia seemed to sense her mother's stress and became quieter, more careful, her usual exuberance dimmed. Marcus did what he could. He made sure Catherine had every resource she needed. He arranged for character witnesses, his building manager, the doorman who had watched Elena work with unfailing reliability, the owner of the corner store where she bought groceries and always had a kind word. He even, in a moment of inspiration, contacted Sophia's daycare teacher, who wrote a glowing letter about Elena's dedication and Sophia's well-being. But there were things he couldn't control, unknowns that kept him awake at night. Immigration law was complex and often arbitrary. Good people got sent back every day, while bureaucrats shuffled papers and checked boxes. The thought of Elena and Sophia being forced to leave made him physically ill. 2 weeks before the hearing, Marcus did something he'd never done in his professional life. He took a vacation day. Not to travel, not even to rest, but to take Elena and Sophia to the zoo. "You need a break," he told Elena when she protested. "You're running yourself ragged, and it won't help. One day, just one day to remember why you're fighting so hard." Sophia's reaction to the invitation made it impossible for Elena to refuse. The little girl practically vibrated with excitement, chattering about all the animals she would see, all the patients she would meet. The day was cold but clear, one of those brilliant December days when the sky seems impossibly blue. Sophia bundled in a coat that Marcus had quietly purchased. It had mysteriously appeared in Elena's bag one morning, darted from exhibit to exhibit with boundless energy. At the butterfly house, because of course Sophia insisted on starting there, they walked through clouds of monarchs and painted ladies, wings catching the light like stained glass. Sophia was entranced, speaking in whispers as if in church. "They're so beautiful," she breathed, watching a monarch land on Elena's shoulder. "Mama, you have a crown." Elena laughed, the first genuine laugh Marcus had heard from her in weeks, and carefully held still while the butterfly rested on her. Marcus pulled out his phone and captured the moment. Elena with her daughter beside her, sunlight streaming through the glass, a butterfly like a jewel on her shoulder, both of them smiling. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. At the lion exhibit, Sophia pressed her face to the glass, watching the big cats lounge in their enclosure. "When I'm an animal doctor, I'm going to help lions," she declared. "And tigers. And bears." "Oh my," Marcus added automatically, and Elena snorted with laughter. "You did not just make a Wizard of Oz reference," she said, her eyes dancing. "I have hidden depths," Marcus said mock seriously, and was rewarded with another laugh. For a few hours, they were just 3 people enjoying a day together, not a billionaire, a housekeeper, and a child facing an uncertain future, but something simpler and more profound. Marcus carried Sophia on his shoulders when she got tired. Elena shared churros with them that left sugar on all their fingers. They took silly photos and made up stories about the animals, and for a brief, precious time, forgot about court dates and deportation orders and all the ways life could still go wrong. On the drive home, Sophia fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted from the day's adventures. Elena looked over at Marcus from the passenger seat. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for today. For all of it. For seeing us as people, not just the help." Marcus kept his eyes on the road, but his hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Elena, I know you didn't. You've always been respectful, even from the first day. But there's a difference between respect and actually caring. Between being a good employer and being..." She trailed off. "Being what?" "Someone I could fall in love with," she said quietly. "If I let myself." Marcus's breath caught. He wanted to pull the car over, to tell her that he was already there, that he had fallen without meaning to, without wanting to, but so completely that there was no going back. But Sophia was asleep in the back seat, and Elena's hearing was in less than 2 weeks, and the moment felt too fragile for grand declarations. "After the hearing," he said instead. "Whatever happens after the hearing, can we talk about this? Really talk?" Elena was quiet for a moment.
Then, Yes.
After the hearing, it wasn't a promise, not exactly. But it was hope, and right then, hope was enough. The night before the hearing, Marcus couldn't sleep. He paced his penthouse, looking out at the city lights, thinking about all the what-ifs. What if Catherine wasn't enough? What if the judge was having a bad day? What if some technicality, some checked box or unchecked box, sent Elena and Sophia back to a country Sophia barely remembered? Around 2 in the morning, his phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Can't sleep either. He called her immediately. Hey. Hey. Her voice was rough, tired. Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. You're not. I've been up for hours. They talked for a long time about everything and nothing. Elena told him about teaching in Mexico, about the students she'd loved, about the life she'd left behind. Marcus told her about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness of success, about the parents who had died when he was young and left him with money, but no family. Is that why you work so hard? Elena asked. To fill the emptiness? Maybe, Marcus admitted. Probably. It's easier to build things than to let people in. I know what you mean. After Sophia's father left, I told myself I would never trust anyone like that again. I would rely only on myself, keep my heart safe. She paused. But that's not really living, is it? It's just surviving. No, Marcus said softly. It's not really living. At 4 in the morning, Elena said she should try to get some sleep. The hearing was at 10. Elena, Marcus said before she could hang up. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already won. You've given your daughter a life full of love and hope and butterfly wisdom. That's not nothing. That's everything. He heard her breath hitch. Thank you, Marcus. For everything. After she hung up, Marcus made a decision. He called Catherine Morrison, waking her up in the process. This better be good, Chun, she growled. The hearing tomorrow. I want to be there. As what? You're not family. You can't even be in the room. As someone who cares about the outcome, I'll wait outside if I have to. But I need to be there. Catherine was quiet for a moment. You really care about her, don't you? About both of them. More than I thought I could care about anything. Okay, Catherine said. I'll arrange for you to be there. But Chen? Don't make promises you can't keep. Immigration court is unpredictable. Even I can't guarantee outcomes. I know, Marcus said. But I can guarantee I'll be there. That has to count for something. As dawn broke over Chicago, Marcus showered and dressed in his best suit. Armor for a battle he couldn't fight himself, but needed to witness. He thought about Sophia's question from months ago, about his dreams. He had said they were sleeping, waiting to be woken. Looking at himself in the mirror, Marcus realized his dreams hadn't been sleeping. They'd been dead, buried under years of work and isolation and self-protection. But Elena and Sophia had planted something new in the wasteland of his life. Something that was just beginning to grow, fragile but real. Today would determine whether it would have the chance to bloom. The federal building was imposing. All concrete and glass, designed to make people feel small. Marcus arrived early and found Catherine Morrison already there, looking sharp in a navy suit, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun that meant business. She here yet? Marcus asked. In the restroom. 3rd time. Nerves, Catherine said, not unkindly. The child is with a friend from her daycare. Better that way. These hearings aren't places for children. Marcus nodded, though his heart sank a little. He'd been hoping to see Sophia, to offer some encouragement. But Catherine was right. A courtroom was no place for a 3-year-old to watch her mother's fate being decided. Elena emerged from the restroom looking pale, but composed. She wore a simple black dress that Marcus recognized as her interview outfit, the same one she'd worn 6 months ago when he'd hired her. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in dark waves, and she carried herself with a dignity that made Marcus's chest ache. Their eyes met across the corridor, and something passed between them. fear, hope, a connection that transcended the sterile setting. "You came," she said softly when he approached. "Of course I came." "Mr. Chin can't be in the courtroom," Catherine interjected. "But he can wait here. I'll update him as soon as we're done." Elena nodded. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, and he saw her gathering courage, pulling her armor into place. "Wish me luck." "You don't need luck. You have Catherine, and you have the truth." "That's better than luck." Elena managed a small smile, then turned to follow Catherine through the heavy wooden doors that led to the courtroom. They closed behind her with a finality that made Marcus want to punch something. Instead, he sat on a hard bench in the corridor and waited. The minutes crawled by. Marcus tried to work on his phone, but the numbers and emails blurred together meaninglessly. He tried to read the news, but couldn't focus on anything beyond the closed doors and what was happening behind them. An hour passed. Then 2. Marcus's mind ran through every possible scenario, most of them bad. What was taking so long? Was that good or bad? He wished he'd asked Catherine more questions, understood the process better. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the doors opened. Catherine emerged first, her face carefully neutral in the way of lawyers who had learned to control their expressions. Behind her came Elena, and Marcus's heart sank. She was crying. He stood up immediately, his legs unsteady. "Elena." She walked straight into his arms, and Marcus held her while she shook with silent sobs. Over her shoulder, he looked at Catherine questioningly. Catherine's expression cracked into a smile. "We won." The judge granted asylum. Conditional at first, but after 2 years, she can apply for permanent residency. The relief was so powerful that Marcus's knees actually buckled. He held Elena tighter, partly to support her, partly to support himself. "You won," he whispered into her hair. "Elena, you won." She pulled back, her face streaked with tears but radiant. "I get to stay. Sophia gets to stay. We're not being sent back. Marcus, we get to stay." Catherine gathered her files, looking satisfied in a professional way. The judge was impressed by the documentation, the character witnesses, and Elena's testimony. She made it clear that Sophia's welfare and educational opportunities were central to her decision. "You built a strong case, Elena. You should be proud." After Catherine left, Elena and Marcus stood in the corridor, neither quite able to process what had just happened. "I need to get Sophia," Elena said, wiping her eyes. "I need to tell her. She's been so worried, even though she's too young to really understand." "Let me drive you," Marcus offered. They made the trip to the daycare in Marcus's car, Elena alternating between crying and laughing, sometimes doing both at once. Marcus kept reaching over to squeeze her hand, needing the physical confirmation that this was real, that she wasn't about to disappear from his life. At the daycare, Sophia ran to her mother immediately, her little face anxious. "Mama? What happened? Did you have to go back to Mexico?" Elena knelt down to her daughter's level, taking Sophia's face in her hands. "No, mi amor. We get to stay. We get to stay in America. This is our home now, officially." Sophia's eyes widened. "Forever?" "Forever," Elena confirmed. Sophia threw her arms around her mother's neck, and Marcus had to look away from the intensity of their joy, giving them a moment of privacy for their celebration. But then Sophia pulled back and looked at Marcus. "Did you help, Marcus? Did you help make Mama's dream come true?" "Your mama did that herself," Marcus said. "She's the bravest person I know." "But you helped," Sophia insisted with the certainty of a child who saw things more clearly than adults. "You're part of our forever now too, right?" Marcus looked at Elena, who was watching him with an expression that made his heart race. "I'd like to be. If that's okay with your mama." Elena stood, still holding Sophia's hand. "It's more than okay." They drove back to Marcus's penthouse, all 3 of them, together. Sophia chattered the whole way, already making plans. She would stay in her daycare. She would learn all her letters. She would become an animal doctor. She would visit the butterflies again. She would. Her list was endless, full of the beautiful certainty of a child who had just learned that her world was safe. That evening, Elena cooked a celebration dinner. Not in the careful, professional way she had for months, but like someone cooking in her own home. She used Marcus's expensive pots without asking permission, played music from her phone, sang along in Spanish while Sophia danced in circles around the kitchen. Marcus watched from the doorway, committing every detail to memory. The way Elena's shoulders had finally released their tension, the way Sophia spun with pure joy, the way his cold, empty penthouse had transformed into something warm and alive. "Are you just going to stand there, or are you going to help?" Elena called, catching sight of him. Marcus joined them in the kitchen, letting Elena direct him in chopping vegetables while Sophia supervised from her step stool. They moved together with an ease that felt natural, inevitable even, as if they'd been doing this for years rather than months. Dinner was simple but perfect: rice, beans, and chicken with spices that made Marcus's expensive dining table smell like home. They ate together, the three of them, and Sophia insisted on making a toast with her cup of juice. "To Mama," she declared, "and to Marcus, and to forever." "To forever," Marcus and Elena echoed, their eyes meeting over Sophia's head with a promise that neither of them said out loud, but both understood. After dinner, while Elena gave Sophia a bath, Marcus cleaned up the kitchen. He found himself smiling at the mess, the spilled rice, the dishes in the sink, the evidence of life being lived in his space. For years he'd kept everything perfect and sterile. Now he never wanted it to be that way again. Elena emerged from the bathroom carrying Sophia, who was wrapped in a towel and yawning. "Someone is very tired from her big day." "I'm not tired," Sophia protested, even as her eyes drooped. "I want to stay up with you and Marcus." "How about we read a story?" Marcus suggested. "Then you can sleep." They settled on the couch together, Elena on one side, Marcus on the other, Sophia in the middle with her new stuffed dog patient. Marcus read from one of Sophia's favorite books, a story about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, his voice soft and steady. Before he'd finished the second page, Sophia was asleep, her head resting on her mother's shoulder, her hand stretched across to touch Marcus's arm, as if she needed to maintain physical contact with both of them. "She loves you," Elena said quietly. "I've been trying not to let her get too attached in case, but she loves you anyway." Marcus looked at the sleeping child, her face peaceful and perfect, and felt something break open in his chest. "I love her too. I didn't know I could feel this way about a child that wasn't mine, but she could be," Elena said softly. Marcus's breath caught. He looked at Elena, searching her face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I've been protecting my heart, keeping you at a distance, because I was afraid. But watching you with her, seeing how much you care, being here in this moment, I don't want to be afraid anymore, Marcus. I want to be brave, like you said I was." "Elena, I'm in love with you," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I've been in love with you for months, probably since that first night we had dinner together. I'm in love with your kindness and your loneliness, and the way you try to hide how much you care, but can't quite manage it. I'm in love with you, and I know the timing is crazy, and I know this is complicated, but I can't." Marcus kissed her. He leaned across the sleeping child between them and kissed Elena like he'd been wanting to for months, like she was air and he'd been drowning. She kissed him back with equal intensity, her hand coming up to cup his face, her touch gentle and sure. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Sophia stirred between them. "We should get her to bed," Elena whispered. "Stay," Marcus said. "Both of you. Not in the guest room, here. This is your home now too if you want it to be." Elena's eyes filled with tears again. "Marcus, that's too fast? Too much?" "I know. But Elena, I have spent so long living in this empty space, filling my days with work and my nights with nothing. You and Sophia, you've shown me what I was missing, what I've been missing my whole life. I don't want you to be my housekeeper anymore. I don't want to pay you to be here. I just want you here. What are you asking me? I'm asking you to move in.
Properly.
As my partner, not my employee. I'm asking you to let me be part of Sophia's life, to help raise her, to be there for her first day of school and her graduation and all the moments in between. I'm asking you to build a life with me. Elena was crying openly now. It's been 6 months. I know. People will say it's too fast. I know. Sophia's father left. What if you change your mind? I won't. Marcus took her hand, lacing their fingers together. Elena, I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I'm not him. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to be here for as long as you'll have me. Elena looked down at their joined hands, then at Sophia sleeping peacefully between them, then back at Marcus. Okay. Yes. We'll stay. We'll build a life with you. I'm terrified, but yes. They sat there for a long moment, holding hands over Sophia's sleeping form, both of them crying a little, both of them smiling. Finally, Marcus carefully lifted Sophia, and together he and Elena carried her to one of the guest rooms. Though it wouldn't be a guest room anymore, he realized. It would be Sophia's room. They would decorate it together, fill it with toys and books and all the things a child needed to grow. After they'd tucked Sophia in, Elena and Marcus stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. She's going to ask questions, Elena said. About why we're staying, about what you are to us. What do you want me to be? Elena leaned into him, and Marcus wrapped his arms around her, breathing in the vanilla scent of her hair. I want you to be what you already are. Family.
Family.
The word settled into Marcus's chest like a key finding its lock. He'd been alone for so long, built his empire with no one to share it with, told himself that success was enough. But this, Elena in his arms, Sophia asleep down the hall, the promise of tomorrow and all the tomorrows after that, this was wealth beyond anything his fortune could buy. They stood there for a long time, neither wanting to break the spell of the moment. Eventually, they made their way to Marcus's room, not to make love, though that would come later, but simply to sleep in each other's arms, to wake up together and start their new life. As Marcus drifted off, Elena's head on his chest and her hand over his heart, he thought about Sophia's question from months ago. What's your dream? He knew the answer now. His dream was this. This warmth, this belonging, this love. His dream was a little girl who believed in butterflies and a woman who had taught him that the bravest thing was to let someone in. His dream was family. But the story wasn't quite over yet. There was still one more question to come. The question that would test everything they'd built, that would force Marcus to confront the last of his demons, that would ultimately heal something broken he hadn't even known needed healing. That question was coming. But for tonight, Marcus let himself simply be happy, held safe in the arms of a woman he loved, with a child sleeping down the hall who called him family. For tonight, that was enough. 3 months later, Marcus's life had transformed in ways he couldn't have imagined. The guest room had become Sophia's room, painted lavender at her insistence and filled with books about animals, her toy doctor's kit, and a growing collection of stuffed patients. Elena's clothes hung in his closet, her toothbrush next to his in the bathroom, her laughter filling the spaces that had been silent for so long. Marcus had stepped back from his company in ways that shocked his board of directors. He left the office at 5 now, rarely took calls after 6, and occasionally worked from home so he could have lunch with Sophia. His employees whispered about the change, but his productivity hadn't suffered. If anything, he made better decisions now, saw problems more clearly. Having something to come home to, he realized, made him sharper during the hours he worked, not duller. Elena had enrolled in an online education program to recertify her teaching credentials in the United States. Marcus had offered to pay for it outright, but Elena insisted on payment plans, on doing it her way. They'd compromised. He paid half as an investment in their family's future. She paid half on her own terms. It was one of many compromises they were learning to make, finding the balance between his resources and her independence. Sophia flourished. She started a pre-K program at a school near Marcus's office, one with a science focus and a reputation for nurturing curious minds. Every afternoon, Marcus or Elena or both of them picked her up, and she would chatter about her day, about the letters she'd learned, the friends she'd made, the wonders she'd discovered. On weekends, they went to museums and parks and zoos. They visited the butterfly house, so often that the staff started to recognize them. They were becoming a family in all the ways that mattered. Not through blood or law yet, though Marcus had already spoken to a family lawyer about adoption procedures, but through the daily accumulation of shared moments, inside jokes, routine and ritual and love. It was a Sunday evening in mid-March when everything changed. They'd spent the day at Navy Pier, enjoying the first warm weather of spring. Sophia had ridden the carousel 3 times, insisting that Marcus and Elena ride with her each time, all 3 of them waving at each other from their painted horses as they went around and around. Now they were home, and Marcus was making dinner, pasta, because he'd finally mastered Elena's recipe, while Elena helped Sophia with a homework assignment, practicing writing her name. SLFI, Sophia carefully spelled out as she wrote each letter. But teacher says some people have middle names. Do I have a middle name, Mama? Maria, Elena told her. Sophia Maria Rodriguez. That's pretty, Sophia declared. Marcus, do you have a middle name? Marcus was draining pasta, but he called back. I do.
James.
Marcus James Chen. So you're Marcus James, and I'm Sophia Maria, and Mama is... Sophia paused. Mama, what's your middle name? Luz. It means light. Elena Luz, Sophia repeated. That's pretty too. And when people get married, they have the same last name sometimes, right? Like Emma's parents are both Jackson. Marcus's hands stilled on the colander. Elena's voice was carefully neutral when she answered. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes people keep their own names too.
Oh.
Sophia was quiet for a moment, and Marcus could hear the scratch of her pencil as she continued practicing letters. Are you and Marcus going to get married? Marcus set down the colander and moved to the doorway, where he could see them. Elena was frozen. Her hand paused over Sophia's homework page. Her eyes met Marcus's, and he saw his own uncertainty reflected there. They hadn't talked about marriage. They talked about everything else, about Elena finishing her degree, about Marcus's plans to create a scholarship fund for undocumented students, about Sophia's education and their shared future. But marriage? That conversation had felt too big, too weighted with implications and expectations. Sweetie, that's a grown-up question. Elena started, but Sophia wasn't finished. Because I think you should, Sophia said matter-of-factly. You love each other, right? I see you holding hands and kissing when you think I'm not looking. Despite the tension, Marcus smiled. Nothing got past Sophia. Yes, we love each other, Elena said carefully. And Marcus loves me too, right, Marcus? More than anything, Marcus said, moving into the room. He sat down across from Sophia at the kitchen table. You know that. And I love you, Sophia said. So we're a family. But Emma says families have the same last name. So shouldn't we all have the same name? Shouldn't you and Mama get married so we can be a real family? The question hung in the air, innocent and devastating. A real family. As if what they had built over these months wasn't real without the paperwork, without the ceremony. But Marcus looked at Sophia's earnest face, at the hope and certainty there, and realized she wasn't questioning their reality. She was asking for confirmation of it, for the external validation that matched her internal truth. Sophia, Elena started, but Marcus held up a hand. Can I answer this? he asked Elena softly. She nodded, though he could see the fear in her eyes. They had built something beautiful, but it was still new, still fragile. The wrong words could shatter it. Marcus turned his full attention to Sophia. You're right that families often have the same last name. And you're right that your mama and I love each other very much. But here's something important I want you to understand. We are already a real family.
Right now.
Just as we are. But let me finish, Marcus said gently. Family isn't about names or certificates or ceremonies. Family is about the people who show up for each other, who love each other on hard days and happy days, who choose each other every single day. By that definition, we became a real family the first time your mama let me stay for dinner, the first time you showed me your butterfly drawing, the first time I realized I'd rather be here with you both than anywhere else in the world. Sophia was listening intently, her young face serious. So, we don't need marriage? I didn't say that, Marcus replied. He looked at Elena, his heart hammering. They should have had this conversation privately first. This wasn't the romantic proposal Elena deserved. But Sophia had asked, and the answer felt urgent, necessary. What I mean is, we don't need marriage to make our family real. It's already real. But marriage is a way of celebrating that reality, of making a promise to the world and to each other that we're in this together for the long haul. He stood up and moved around the table to where Elena sat. Her eyes were wide, shining with unshed tears. Elena, Marcus said, taking her hand. This isn't how I planned to do this. I have a ring hiding in my sock drawer and I've been trying to figure out the perfect moment, the perfect words. But maybe this is the perfect moment. Maybe the perfect moment is just the true one. Marcus, Elena's voice broke. I love you, he continued. I love your strength and your pride, and the way you taught me that walls are prisons, not protection. I love how you've built a life for Sophia out of nothing but determination and love. I love that you push back when I try to fix everything with money, that you make me better just by being yourself. He knelt beside her chair, still holding her hand. Sophia gasped, recognizing the gesture from movies and books. I want to marry you, Elena Luz Rodriguez. I want to adopt Sophia officially, if she'll have me as her father. I want to build a life where butterfly wisdom is taken seriously and dinner at the kitchen island is more important than any board meeting. I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life and come home to you both every evening. I want to make our family official in every way that matters. Tears were streaming down Elena's face now. You have a ring in your sock drawer? Marcus laughed, the sound shaky with emotion. I bought it a month ago. I've been carrying it around in my pocket some days, trying to find the courage to ask. Marcus James Chen, Elena said, and he loved the way she used his full name, the way Sophia had asked about. You are the bravest man I know. You opened your heart when you'd closed it for years. You let us in when you could have kept us at a distance. You chose us when you could have had anything. So, is that a yes? It's a yes, Elena said, pulling him up so she could kiss him properly. It's a yes to all of it. To marriage and adoption and building this life together. It's a yes to forever. Does this mean Marcus will be my daddy? Sophia asked, her voice small and hopeful. Marcus and Elena broke apart, both turning to look at the little girl who had started all of this with her innocent question about names and families. If you want me to be, Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. Would you like that, Sophia? For me to be your daddy, officially? Sophia didn't answer with words. She launched herself at Marcus, her small arms wrapping around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder. Marcus held her tight, this child who had somehow become his in every way that mattered, and felt tears he didn't try to hide slip down his face. I love you, Daddy, Sophia whispered. I love you too, sweetheart, Marcus managed. So much. Elena joined them, wrapping her arms around both Marcus and Sophia, and they stayed like that for a long time, a huddle of three, a family, complete and real and perfect in its imperfection. Finally, Sophia pulled back, her face serious again. So, when you get married, what will our last name be? Marcus and Elena looked at each other and laughed. Leave it to Sophia to focus on the practical details. What do you think it should be? Elena asked her daughter. Sophia considered this carefully. Can we pick a new one? One that's just for us. That's not really how it works, honey, Elena started, but Marcus interrupted. Actually, it could work like that. People can legally change their names. We could all choose something together, something that represents our family. Really? Sophia's eyes lit up. Really? Marcus confirmed, looking at Elena for approval. She was smiling through her tears, nodding. Then I want it to be Butterfly, Sophia declared. The Butterfly family. Because butterflies are beautiful and they come from hard times, and that's like us, right? We had hard times, but now we're beautiful. Marcus felt his chest constrict. Out of the mouths of babes, as they said. Sophia had somehow distilled their entire journey into one perfect metaphor. I think Butterfly might be a bit unusual for a last name, Elena said gently. But maybe we could find something similar? Something that means the same thing. They spent the next hour, dinner forgotten on the stove, looking up names that meant butterfly, transformation, or new beginnings in different languages. Finally, they settled on Mariposa, the Spanish word for butterfly. Marcus Chun would become Marcus Mariposa. Elena Rodriguez would become Elena Mariposa. And Sofia Maria Rodriguez would become Sofia Maria Mariposa. The Mariposa family, Sophia said with satisfaction. I like it. Me too, Elena said, leaning into Marcus. Me three, Marcus added, pulling them both close. Later that evening, after Sophia had finally been convinced to go to bed, excited about flower girls and wedding cakes and whether there would be butterflies at the ceremony, Marcus retrieved the ring from his sock drawer. It was a simple thing, elegant but not ostentatious, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, because Elena had once mentioned loving the color blue. He slipped it onto her finger in the quiet of their bedroom, both of them still amazed that the evening had unfolded the way it had. I'm sorry I didn't do something more romantic, Marcus said. You deserved candles and music and a big gesture. Elena looked at the ring on her finger, then up at him. Marcus, you became my daughter's father tonight. You knelt beside my chair in our kitchen and promised forever while our little girl watched. You agreed to change your name, the one on billion-dollar contracts, to match ours. What could possibly be more romantic than that? Marcus kissed her then, slow and deep, pouring everything he felt into it, gratitude and love, and the overwhelming relief of finding your person, your people, your home. When did you know? Elena asked later, as they lay in bed together, her head on his chest, her hand with its new ring resting over his heart. When did you know you wanted this? Marcus thought back over the months, trying to pinpoint the moment. Remember that first dinner? When Sophia was coloring butterflies and you both stayed? Of course. I think it started then. But I knew for sure the night before your hearing, when you called at 2 a.m. I realized I couldn't imagine my life without you both in it. The thought of you leaving, of going back to just me and this empty penthouse, it was unbearable. Elena was quiet for a moment. I knew the day at the zoo. Watching you carry Sophia on your shoulders, seeing you laugh at her terrible jokes, the way you looked at both of us like we were precious. I knew I was done protecting my heart. It was already yours. They talked late into the night, making plans. They would have a small ceremony, something intimate with just a few close friends. They would start the adoption paperwork immediately. Elena would finish her teaching credentials, and Marcus would help her find a position at a good school. They would travel as a family. Sophia had never been on a plane, had never seen the ocean. They would buy a house, something with a yard where Sophia could run and play, maybe get that dog she'd been hinting about. They would build a life, together, all three of them. Marcus. Elena said as sleep began to pull at them both.
Huh?
Thank you for seeing us. Really seeing us. Not as your housekeeper and her kid, but as people. As family. Marcus tightened his arms around her. Thank you for teaching me what family means. I thought I knew. I thought my company, my success, my independence, I thought that was enough. But you and Sophia, you showed me what I was missing. You saved me, Elena. Both of you. We saved each other, she whispered. And maybe that was the truth of it. Elena had needed stability, security, a chance for her daughter to thrive. Marcus had needed connection, purpose beyond profits, a reason to come home. Sophia had needed a father, a complete family, a stable foundation for her dreams. They had all needed each other, and somehow, against odds that should have kept them apart, different worlds, different circumstances, every reason to maintain those careful professional boundaries, they had found each other anyway. 6 months later, on a warm September afternoon, Marcus and Elena married in the butterfly house at the Lincoln Park Zoo. Sophia served as both flower girl and ring bearer, taking her duties very seriously. The ceremony was small. Catherine Morrison was there, along with a few of Marcus's closest colleagues and Elena's friends from the community center. But it felt full, complete, exactly right. When the officiant pronounced them married, Sophia cheered louder than anyone, and a monarch butterfly, as if on cue, landed on Elena's shoulder, just like in the photo Marcus had taken months before. Your crown, Mama, Sophia whispered, and everyone laughed. At the reception afterward, held in Marcus's penthouse, their penthouse now, Sophia gave a toast. Marcus had tried to tell her she didn't need to, that she was too young for speeches, but she had insisted. Standing on a chair so everyone could see her, holding a cup of juice high, Sophia spoke with a solemn certainty of 4 years old. She'd had a birthday in the meantime. My mama says butterflies are proof that beautiful things come from hard times. We had hard times. But now we're the Mariposa family, and we're beautiful together. So everybody should remember. Hard times don't last forever. Sometimes they turn into butterflies. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, as the party wound down and Sophia fell asleep on the couch, Marcus and Elena stood at the windows overlooking Chicago, the same spot where Marcus had stood alone so many months ago, feeling hollow despite his success. What are you thinking? Elena asked, lacing her fingers through his. Marcus looked at their reflection in the glass, him and Elena side by side, Sophia visible behind them sleeping peacefully on the couch. A family. His family. I'm thinking about Sophia's question, he said. The one that started all this. She asked if we were going to get married, so we could be a real family. And I'm thinking she was wrong about the order. We didn't need to get married to become a real family. We were already real. But I'm glad we did it anyway. I'm glad the world knows. I'm glad that when people ask, I can say you're my wife. Sophia is my daughter, and we're the Mariposa family. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. You know what I'm thinking about? That first night, when you came home early and found us in the kitchen. You could have fired me. You could have maintained those boundaries, kept your distance, protected yourself. Best decision I never made, Marcus said, and Elena laughed. Best decision you did make was saying yes when I invited you to stay for dinner. No, Marcus said, turning to face her fully, his hands coming up to cup her face. The best decision I made was opening my heart. Everything else followed from that. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and behind them, Sophia stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about butterflies and doctors and forever. The Chicago skyline still glittered outside the windows. Marcus's company still existed, still thrived, still made him wealthier than any one person needed to be. But none of that mattered as much as this. His wife in his arms, his daughter sleeping peacefully nearby, his heart finally full. A poor maid's daughter had asked one question at dinner, and a billionaire had put down his fork and frozen, not because he didn't know the answer, but because the answer had changed everything. Are you And Marcus going to get married? Such a simple question. Such a profound answer. Yes. Yes, they were. Because they had already become what Sophia had been asking about all along, a real family, built not on names or papers or ceremonies, but on love and choice and the brave decision to let each other in. And in the end, wasn't that what everyone was looking for? Not wealth or success or achievement, but connection, belonging, home. Marcus had found all three in a woman who cleaned houses and dreamed of teaching, and her daughter, who believed in butterfly wisdom. The poor maid's daughter had asked one question, and the billionaire's answer had set him free. The Mariposa family still lives in Chicago. Sophia is excelling in school and has expanded her career ambitions to include not just veterinary medicine, but also lepidopterology, the study of butterflies and moths. Elena finished her teaching credentials and now teaches English literature at the same school Sophia attends. Marcus still runs his company, but he's become known for his advocacy for immigration reform and for the scholarship fund he created for undocumented students. And every year on their anniversary, they visit the Butterfly House, where a small plaque now reads, "In honor of the Mariposa family, proof that beautiful things come from hard times."